Voters in Wisconsin are being purged before the election, according to Greg Palast. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel.
Is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. You know, we have talked with Greg Palast many times about, in fact, over the years, about how the state of Georgia and the fellow Brian Kemp, who was the Secretary of State, was actively purging African Americans off the voting rolls in Georgia. Obviously, this is not something that is limited to Georgia, and Greg Palast has just broke some really wild news about what's going on in Wisconsin. On the line with us is our old friend Greg Palast. Greg Palast, Palast.com is his website. His Twitter handle, just like mine, is Thom_Hartmann. His is Greg_Palast, Palast. And Greg, welcome back. Tell us about Wisconsin.
Well, today the state Supreme Court of Wisconsin may be picking our president. They're hearing a lawsuit by a Republican-backed group to enforce a law signed by Scott Walker, which would require the removal of 129,000 voters from the voter rolls of Wisconsin. By the way, that's 6 times Trump's victory margin, 129,000 voters, on the grounds that they've moved. You know, you can't vote in Milwaukee if you've left Milwaukee. Well, problem. Sequana Taylor is on that list for having moved from Milwaukee. She's Milwaukee County supervisor. So we went through the list. Black Voters Matter Fund yesterday released my report of the Palast Investigative Fund. It's at, by the way, you can get it at Capital Times, Madison, or at gregpalast.com. And what we found was ugly. 39,722 people on the list never moved. They're right where they registered. They shouldn't lose their votes. However, if you look at the map that we created, census tract by census tract, there is a near perfect match between people wrongly tagged to lose their vote and the black population of a census district. We actually called 700 of these so-called movers, and they all said we didn't move or we moved down the street, which means you don't lose your registration if you move in your neighborhood. That's another 58,000 people wrongly tagged, and almost everyone was a voter of color or a student. And I have to say, here's something here's some good news. The state of Wisconsin agrees with our findings and says this list is junk. We don't want to use it. So that's why they are in court today. The Wisconsin Supreme Court still has a Republican majority of 1. And if they choose to remove these 129,000 student and black voters, well, we could have a repeat of 2016 in which this kind of Jim Crow operation, not the voters, chooses Wisconsin and chooses the president. So I'm very concerned. So again, it's completely racial. It's completely wrong. And just to know how we know whether people moved or not, we're guessing. We did something the state and certainly the Governor Walker and his cronies didn't do. We hired the post office itself, which you can do, the licensee of the post office and the top 3 address verification experts in America that work for Google and Amazon and Home Depot, and I just had the experts go through name by name using 1,700 data points to make sure we knew exactly where each of these voters lived, and we called them, we sent them letters, and it confirmed it all. But unfortunately, the state, so the state, again, the state Board of Elections agrees with us. They do not want to purge these voters. The law says they must, but they're saying that federal law and their higher responsibility is you can't just remove people because someone said this black student has moved somewhere when they're standing right there and we're talking to them. We have them on camera.
So, Greg,
at their homes.
Let me just get this straight. The conservatives, the Republicans in Wisconsin who are suing before the Supreme Court, the Republicans in Wisconsin are saying that there's a couple 100,000 more or less, or over 100. It's in the neighborhood of 100,000 people, right?
Yeah, about 129,000.
Okay, so they're saying that 129,000 people in Wisconsin have moved out of state, and therefore
out of their city. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they've moved. So why, if they've moved, I mean, when I moved here to Portland from Washington, D.C., I didn't tell Washington, D.C. that I had moved. My guess is I was probably on their voter rolls for another couple of years until they figured out I'd left town. But I didn't vote. What's the crisis? What's the problem with having people on your voting rolls who no longer live there? Why are the Republicans so freaked out? I mean, I get it. They're so freaked out about this because they want to steal the election. But how does that rationalization even hold up in a court of law?
Well, they're saying that they have a list called the Eric Movers List, which is not meant, by the way, the organization itself, it says this is not a purge list. This is just, it's a list of people who they think may have moved, but they mix a lot of Jose Garcias. They mix James Browns, so you get a lot of common minority names. And, students put in change of addresses temporarily for the summer, and they go, gotcha, we're going to remove you from the voter rolls. But so, they're trying to come up with ways. They understand that students move dorm rooms and move locally. They understand that renters move around. And, of course, there's a confusion with African-American, Hispanic, and Asian-American names, which are in common. So if Jose Garcia moves out of Milwaukee, 3 other Jose Garcias are now in danger of losing their vote. It's like you say, it's crazy from a democracy view, not a democratic view,
from a logical point of view,
to say that let's say that there are, by the way, we did confirm that about 60,000, I'd say about 30% of the list are people who have moved and should re-register, fine. We've confirmed that. But you know what? Even keeping those few thousand on the voter rolls, they've never had a case in which someone is voting in Milwaukee after moving to Los Angeles. It's just completely nuts, and I don't know if you can get So it's nuts from a democracy view. It's brilliant from a Republican strategy view. Several states are using this gimmick, so that's why I went to Wisconsin. But today, the Supreme Court there is going to hear it, and like I say, it's really unusual in that we have the government itself saying, Palast numbers are correct. This list is junk. We can't use it. It's against federal law. It's even against Wisconsin law, which says you have to have reliable information, not Republican information. You understand the difference? There's Republican information. There's reliable information, and the commission, which is, by the way, bipartisan. The bipartisan commission says no. We'd like reliable information, and what we did was we literally hired the post office as one of our consultants, which they didn't do. That is, the GOP didn't do. In fact, the guy bringing the suit, this is this right-wing organization backed by the billionaire right-wing Bradley family. This guy said, I said, you check the accuracy of the list? No. Did you hire the post office licensees required by law? No. Did you see that this is mostly African Americans and students? We did no demographic review. Of course they didn't, because they know the answer, and they know that that's also a violation of the remnants of the Voting Rights Act. It is screamingly Jim Crow. If you look at the maps that we have at gregpalast.com or at Madison.com, which is the Capital Times, or you get the report. I mean, it's ugly. It's like a stain, right? It's right. Like. You see,
Greg, when are we going to hear the decision of the Wisconsin Supreme Court? We just have 20 seconds here.
Okay. Hopefully they'll say we're going to punt. We're not going to even deal with this until after the election. But the law does say these people have to be removed unless the court says we have a higher law and we can't remove legal voters. So it could be.
And the legislature is still Republican controlled, even though there's a Democratic governor. So they're not going to change the law, right?
They're not going to. They've gerrymandered themselves into permanent residents. Sick.